What's going on, everyone? Olivia Reiner here for Packers News, joined by Ryan Wood, and we have a lot to discuss regarding free agency. We'll start with edge rusher. The Packers are going to be looking for at least a couple of them, whether it's in free agency, in the draft. They may use one of their top 2 draft picks on an edge rusher this upcoming April. So, Ryan, who do you see as a potential target come free agency on Wednesday?
Well, the guys like Jadeveon Clowney, D. Ford, they're off the market. I mean, the top edge rushers every year, they get franchise tagged. Teams don't let those guys hit the open market, so they're really looking at the second tier. And I think the trade sending Michael Bennett from the Philadelphia Eagles to the New England Patriots, that's an interesting one because Trey Flowers, who is a Patriots free agent, is going to be probably the cream of the crop of the guys that do get to the open market. I think there's a lot of people that thought that, okay, the Patriots will let him get to the open market, double back, and try to come to a market value deal with him. But with Michael Bennett going there now, it certainly puts him more exposed on the open market, and it increases the chances that a guy like that could be going to another team. I also think it'll be interesting if the Packers do try to pursue a trade for D. Ford, although he has been tagged. They like him a lot. They're interested. Ultimately, it's hard to see the price matching up with the value. And they've got a lot of needs, and those draft picks are going to be awfully precious this spring. But I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Gutekunst is considering his options there. They do have Mike Smith at linebackers coach, who is D. Ford's position coach in Kansas City, so they have a lot of inside familiarity with him. They need an overhaul at that position, so I think all options are on the table there.
Mm-hmm. So this past season, the Packers were decimated at the safety position, whether it was through injury, from cuts, and they'll certainly be looking at free agency for a safety. There's a lot of good, potentially very expensive options out there. Do you see any of those guys like Landon Collins, Earl Thomas being an option for the Packers?
Not at the price that they're going to be asking right now. I mean, Landon Collins wants $12 million a year. The Packers aren't going to be in it. If he drops it to 8 or 9, then maybe. And it'll be interesting to see if a 25-year-old Pro Bowler on the open market is going to drop his price. But the safety market has been very depressed the past couple of years. You've seen guys take deals that financially you wouldn't expect, lower than expected. The Packers need 2 safeties. They need a free safety and they need a strong safety. That gives them some options in terms of how they go about building their depth chart. They could go after a Landon Collins and, let's say, try to either through the draft or getting creative with the roster they have, maybe moving a Josh Jackson to free safety. They can have some flexibility there, or they can go after an Earl Thomas, a guy that can cover, and try to see if Kentrell Bryce or Josh Jones can play better and grow inside the box as tacklers, run support. So they have options there. It's going to be really interesting. One, the safety market in general, but how the Packers go about building that depth chart.
Matt LaFleur was very clear at the Combine that tight ends are an important part of his offense, and he's going to be looking for tight ends who can do it all, including blocking. Who is going to be out there on the free agent market come Wednesday that could fit Matt LaFleur's outside zone scheme?
Well, they're not going to sign Jared Cook. I mean, that ship sailed a couple years ago. That's not coming back in the harbor. I mean, that's gone. So you look at the open market. I mean, you're looking at blocking tight ends. Outside of Jared Cook, there's no real great pass catchers. Tyler Eifert would have been that, but the injuries have really hampered his career, obviously. I think a Luke Stalker out of Tennessee is going to be interesting because that's the guy that Matt LaFleur, on the day he was hired, he mentioned Luke Stalker unprompted and praised his versatility as a guy that can be in line, also can move back to the backfield as a fullback, that gives an offense options, and he's a good blocker, and that they need that. I think it'll be interesting if they ever pursue Mercedes Lewis again, because he did have the controversial statements and kind of questioning Mike McCarthy's offense after the season, but he is a good blocker. He was very good as a blocker last year, only had 3 catches, but he can block. They're going to look for the draft for at least 1 and maybe 2 pass-catching tight ends. They've got to really load up there. But free agency is a place that they can maybe get a blocker to fit Matt LaFleur's system.
Mm-hmm. So there are only 2 real locks on the offensive line with David Bakhtiari and Corey Linsley this upcoming season. What are the Packers going to be looking for come free agency, especially given the fact that at the Combine, Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur were pretty adamant about looking for an athletic offensive lineman?
Well, I think they got to prioritize right guard because there's no answer there right now. Lane Taylor at left guard, yeah, he could be a starter next year. Brian Bulaga at right tackle, yeah, he's got 1 more year left in his deal. he could be a starter next year. Right guard is a big question mark there. So Quinton Spain, who started for the Titans last year in Matt LaFleur's offense, he's more of a run blocker than a pass protector, and that's a departure. Usually the Packers like those really athletic linemen that can hold up in pass pro, and they like to move tackles inside the guard and get those types. That's not Quinton Spain, but he's a guy that has a lot of familiarity with Matt LaFleur. I think on the perimeter, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do at right tackle because, I mean, that's one of the tougher decisions they have to make. Brian Bulaga is under contract. Do they just stand pat at right tackle, or do they try to get that taken care of too this offseason? I don't know, and that's going to be really interesting to find out.
Lots of question marks, lots of holes for the Packers to fill. It'll be interesting just to see how everything plays out. Please be sure to head on over to PackersNews.com to check out all of our analysis and all of our stories over there. We'll be keeping you guys up to date on free agency as that begins on Wednesday. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.